Hi, welcome everybody. This is SPE Live. We are coming to you live from Houston and all parts of the world today. It is a beautiful, cool spring morning here in Houston. Very, very excited about today's broadcast. We will be talking about leadership. SPE Talks Leadership. So I am very honored and proud to introduce a truly esteemed and expert panel of speakers to you today. The panel will be addressing how leaders act and steer their organizations through what must be one of the most challenging times in the oil industry. We're facing two major challenges, the COVID-19 pandemic and the current low oil price environment caused by oversupply and lack of global demand due to this pandemic recession. So the panelists will share their insights on how these two waves are impacting oil and gas and the management of and sustainability of the business, how it's impacting the workforce, the SPE, and the future industry interaction, including academia and other parallel industries. COVID-19 is obviously mostly impacting office workers and the traditional styles of learning in universities and schools. The work-life balance is all over the place right now, as you can all imagine. It's also affecting, in many places, field operations. But mostly it's the low oil price environment that's impacting field operations and the future outlook for oil and gas, including the continuation and the sustainability of our business. So it's a very important time for us to look at how we lead our industry through the current climate. So on the panel today, we have Sami Alnuaim. He is the outgoing 2019 SPE president, a 30-year veteran of petroleum engineering at Saudi Aramco. He is speaking today in his capacity as the 2019 SPE president. Also on the panel, we have Tom Blasingame, the 2021 SPE president. So he's the incoming president. He'll be taking over in September. Renowned expert in reservoir engineering and well production. He is the holder of the Robert L. Whiting Professorship at the Department of Petroleum Engineering, Texas A&M. Also on the panel, Eve Sprunt. She is a 35-year-old oil and gas industry veteran, having worked for several super major operators. She is today a thought leader, speaker on business leadership, industry trends, technology, and workforce issues. She is also a past president for SPE back in 2006 and is a past president of the American Geosciences Institute in 2018. And finally on the panel, Kamel Bennaceur. He is the CEO of Nomadia Energy Consulting, previously chief economist for ADNOC and earlier director for sustainability, technology, and outlooks at the prestigious IEA. Now, this expert group of panelists will be led by our moderator today, Maria Angela Capello. She is the chair of the SPE Business Management and Leadership Committee and is currently executive consultant at the Kuwait Oil Company. So very, very excited to introduce all these people. It's going to be an absolutely outstanding discussion. Now, this, to you, the audience out there, this is your opportunity to ask those questions you want to ask of SPE presidents about the SPE, about how we should be leading our oil and gas industry. So please use your chat boxes to ask the questions, any questions you've always dreamt of asking about to a SPE president or about leadership in oil and gas. Now is your opportunity. So very, very exciting. We'll be shortly starting this panel session. So hold on to your seats, get ready to ask those questions. The broadcast will be available on demand after this live broadcast, but unfortunately the on-demand viewing will not allow you to ask those important questions. So if you have those questions, please ask them as we go. What we will be doing, we'll be scanning all the questions that are coming in, and we will be feeding them through to our moderator, Maria. So your questions will be seen, and we will do our utmost best to ask those of the panel. So please remember, ask questions. Very excited about this today. Just to mention, we got some really good SPE live broadcasts coming up over the next few weeks. So next week, we'll be returning to the issue of shutting in production in this time on unconventional shale wells. The week after, we'll be addressing sustainability in oil and gas and how we need to measure sustainability in oil and gas operations. And in 3 weeks' time, we'll be taking a look at drilling technology, specifically automation and robotics. So a lot of really exciting content coming up on SPE Live over the next few weeks. And please, by all means, talk to us. Tell us what you'd like to hear on SPE Live, and we'll be more than happy to accommodate. Also, check us out on www.spe.org for more information about the SPE, and lots of really, really good resources for you to all use out there on the SPE websites. So please check us out there and get ready for our panel. It's going to be very, very exciting. We'll be talking about leadership today. So leadership in the oil and gas industry, how SPE is taking leadership and helping the oil and gas industry and the SPE members through the current crisis. So we'll be starting shortly with the panel. Please, again, ask your questions. This is a great opportunity to meet and ask questions of SPE presidents. They are very, very willing, very open to your questions, and really want to hear what you have to say. So it's important that you participate, and this is a great opportunity for you all to participate in this broadcast. So just use your chat boxes on the social media platforms below the broadcast here, and type in your questions, and we will be looking at them as they come in, and we will do our best to pass them on to our panelists. Also, tell us where you are from the world, where you are coming from, where you're watching us. We're very interested to know who you all are out there and what you're all doing today. And hopefully you've all had a good day and a safe day in whatever you've been doing. So again, shortly we'll be starting our panel session. And remember to check us out at www.spe.org for more information. And like I said, we will be having lots of other really exciting SPE Live commentary coming up later in the next couple of weeks. Also, previous SPE Live broadcasts are all available on demand. That includes George King's broadcast last week about shutting in production and starting up wells. So his really excellent technical presentation is available to view on demand. We have a landing page that you can get to from the SPE website, so please check that out. We have lots of really good content coming up, and lots of really good past content as well from SPE Live. So once again, welcome to our program. I shall now pass you all over to our panelists.
Hello all, how are you? My name is Capello, and I am connecting from Kuwait in what is the end of a very sunny day, beautiful day in Kuwait. So I want to welcome you all to this panel on behalf of the Business Management and Leadership Committee of the SPE. As the chair of the committee, it is my pleasure to let you know that our main objective is to foster and provide venues for the growth, the professional growth of our members. And one of those skills that we are fostering and encouraging is leadership. So it's not a coincidence that the panel title today is SPE Talks Leadership. So we have wonderful leaders today with us, 4 SPE presidents, nothing less, nothing more than that, who are our natural role models. We have prepared a set of questions for them, and we are about to start. And because of that, it is my pleasure now to let you know a little bit about them. Already they were introduced by Nils, but I want to let you know, while they are connecting, that we have Sami Alnuaim, 2019 president, 30-year veteran of petroleum engineering, Tom Blasingame, 2021 SPE president, Dr. Sprunt, she was also SPE president, 2006, and Dr. Kamel Bennaceur, that has been selected as the incoming president. I have mentioned all of you, and I am so proud. We are all proud to have you as our panelist. And let's start. I think that we want to hear from our audience, and especially from you. And my first question is, What measures and priorities leaders in our industry take, or probably already took during this crisis? And I would like to address this question to Dr. Sami.
Thank you, Maria and Nils, for putting this all together. Really a very, very interesting event by SPE. So thanks to all those who are really putting it together and behind the scene. Before I answer the question, I just want to say that this current crisis, COVID-19, is really nothing like the downturn and the crisis that we have seen so far. Many of us in this panel really lived long to see so many downturns and some kind of economic recessions that we witnessed. In myself, in the last in my 30 years experience in the industry, I've seen the oil price drop in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2008, and in the last in 2014 and 15. But this is indeed different. It's different and unique because of its scope, its geographical scale, and its great impact not only in the oil and gas industry, but all industries at large. Basically, those of you who follow the news, for example, in the U.S. alone, I've heard that more than 20 million people filed for jobs during the month of April. So the impact is so huge, and I would like just to start by saying our sympathy and prayer goes to those victims of this virus and those who lost their lives. To answer the question, Maria, I think in my opinion that because of its unique nature, the unique nature of this crisis, it needs really unique leaders as well to address it. And we're so lucky to have so many of these in our industry. In my opinion, there are 6 priorities that needs to be looked at by the oil and gas leaders. The first is the safety of our people, the people who really energize the world, who pump the oil and gas. Although we adopted a new business model by working remotely, because of the investment that we put earlier in the digitization, but also we have some people also they have to work from in facilities, having some critical functions, operating facilities, operating rigs, and so on. So the safety of our people, I think, is the top priority of any leader for that sake. The second priority, which is linked to that one, which is the business continuity. Again, we are talking about a loss of 30 million barrels, a sudden loss of 30 million barrels a day when it comes to the global oil demand. But let's not forget that we're still producing 70 million barrels of oil per day, and hundreds of billions scuffed of gas that are really needed, not only to keep the modern life as it is also, but also to help the people to fight and help governments and organizations and the health sector to fight this virus. We tend to think of oil and gas, to think of oil only for leisure cars and airplanes, but it's not. It's really it's involved in every aspect that we do. If you look at, for example, how much oil is used basically to support the transportation associated with cargo, with marine transportation, supporting the emergency organizations. When it comes to gas, also looking at the petrochemicals and the downstream manufacturing of the petrochemicals that eventually get us something like ventilators used by the health personnel to save life. And of course, not forgetting the gas used in the fertilizer business to boost the food production, as well as to provide energy to lighten our facilities, our buildings, and our cities. So that's the second priority. It's really very important to put it in perspective. Third priority, in my opinion, is to focus on tapping on technology, really to improve efficiency and reduce cost. Tapping on the IR 4.0, the Industrial Revolution technology to reduce cost. Instead of releasing manpower. it would be really very important to tap on technology. I know that there will be some tough decisions to reduce cost, and tough decisions probably to delay certain projects, but let's not forget the strategic nature of our business, of our industry. We never plan for short term in our industry. We always look at the long term and the long term demand for the global energy when it comes to that matter. I always say during my tenure as SPE president, I always say those who invest in recessions and downturn are those who will be ready to harvest their investment during the upturn. As I said, we've seen so many downturns, but something that for sure we know about, that there will be upturn coming after. Now, how soon that is, probably few weeks, maybe a few months, maybe until the end of the year, we don't know. But we know that the demand for energy, the demand for oil, will come back to its normal level. So those who invest during recession and those who invest during downturn will be really ready to harvest it. The fourth priority, I would say, collaboration. Collaboration is really the venue really to help. We need to help each other, and we've seen good examples in the oil and gas industry in terms of collaboration, whether in the technical and developing technologies, working together, or even in the soft issues like addressing the climate challenge through OGCI. And a good example, even related to the oil prices and putting stabilization between supply and demand. The thing that we've seen last month, during the month of April, the OPEC and OPEC plus, OPEC plus as well, we're coming together, collaborating together to address this issue globally. So there is no one entity that can solve that. The fifth priority, in my opinion, also, we as an industry also have unmatched social responsibility program. And this is about the time really to increase it. We need to help our communities, our governments, our cities really to address it. And I'm very happy to see so many national and international oil companies announcing some social responsibility programs. Some of them encouraging their employees to donate money, and they are matching the amount that that they collect from their employees. So this is the spirit that we would like to really encourage and promote in our society. And last but not least, we have to do all of the above, all of what I've said, really, without losing focus on safety, which is really very, very important, not losing focus on doing our operation in environmentally friendly manner, and last but not least, which is very, very important, sometimes we lose focus during panic mode, which is the cybersecurity. We know that the oil and gas industry, one of the top targets of the hackers, and guess what? This is the best time for them. Really, this is the best time for them. When people addressing a crisis, I can't trick anyone by phishing email, with the title of, how to, fight COVID-19, for example. So we really need to deliver all of these basically by focusing, while focusing on safety, while focusing on the environment, which is very important, and most importantly, focusing on our cybersecurity, protecting our facilities and our people, and the supply of energy. Back to you, Maria.
Yes, thank you very much, Sami. You have set up the stage with a very good plan view, about the oil industry and the priorities. 4 priorities that you mentioned, which are very, very, core to our business. Okay. But I would like, using one of our own terms in the oil industry, I would like to drill down into leadership, because our panel is about leadership. And now I would like to call for Kamel. Dr. Kamel, can you tell us a little bit more specific about what actions do you think leaders need to take during the pandemic, but I also want to pick your mind about what they need to do after the pandemic.
Thank you, Maria, for the invitation, and good day from very sunny Abu Dhabi today. So the COVID-19 crisis is unique in the last 50 years, as mentioned by Dr. Sami, as it combines a global health one, an economic one, and an energy one. So it's a triple black swan with a magnitude not seen before. After the what has been called the Black Monday on April 20th, the IEA's executive director, Dr. Fatih Birol, described April 2020 as the worst month in the worst quarter and what could be the worst year for energy markets. But I guess the good news is that April is behind us, and looking forward, the derivative change sign, and it should be now positive. So in terms of leaders, we have to look at them like jugglers, because they have to combine action taking for the short term and review completely their medium and long-term strategy. So they have to balance those two things. So they have to balance the requirement for being prepared now and ensuring that the organization that they are leading is resilient. And at the Business Management and Leadership Committee, which is headed by our colleague Maria Capello, resilience is a very important term. We teach our members about their own resiliency, but also how to make their own organization resilient. And also, along with that, is being prepared for a new type of what we would call stress testing for the organization, or other people call being future-proof. Stress testing was very much used for the financial sector after the 2008 financial crisis, and making sure that our financial institutions are ready for any events of the magnitude that we have seen in 2008. So the stress testing that would happen in the energy sector would include taking into account some of the extraordinary factors that have happened, including the shut-in of production to a level that we have never seen before, as well as some of the comments by Dr. Sami on the cybersecurity and other threats. So again, going back to the juggling between short-term and long-term, the first action, I fully agree with Dr. Sami, should be on the HSSNE efforts to make the workplace a safe one. The second is ensuring business continuity, and this includes things like ensuring the strength of cybersecurity and reorganize the work practices so that they adapt to the different phases of deconfinement. So we are seeing in a number of countries getting out of confinement coming in different stages. So the workplace needs to adapt to the different modes. The third one is fully reconnecting with customers. And obviously they should be on top of the list. And fourth one is protecting financially their institutions. And this is, in many cases, preventing risks of bankruptcies. So there would be difficult decisions, especially on human capital one. And I like very much a quote from consulting group Deloitte, who's saying, leaders should simultaneously design from the heart and the head by empathizing with their employees, customer, and their broader ecosystems, yet simultaneously adopting a rational line to protect financial performance from disruptions. So that I want to stress the empathy word, which is extremely important with our workforce, given the amount of disruption they are taking from a professional and family life, and also the fact that we need to design not only from the head, but also from the heart. So going to the medium and long-term perspective, in medium term, the next, let's say, 3 years, there should be tactical responses to what the situation has implied, especially in terms of disruption into the production stream. And for the longer term, re-evaluate completely the strategic options to accommodate future scenarios, including as much as possible what could be looked at as black swans. So in the Business Management and Leadership Committee, we are also emphasizing the strategic and as being an essential part of the business and a key ingredient of leadership.
Thank you, Kamel. Thank you. That's very interesting to hear. Now I'm going to bring in Yves here. So Yves, you are also a long-term veteran of the oil and gas industry. So listening to what Sami had to say and what Kamel was just commenting now, what in your opinion are the critical business management and leadership skills to help overcome the current crisis in the industry?
I think we can look at leaders of many types to see what works and what doesn't work in terms of things. And I think one of the two key things about leaders are you need to be decisive. So it's, you are the leader, the buck stops there, and you need to be responsible. But at the same time, you also need to be flexible because in this case, as everyone said, this is unprecedented. We don't have case studies to go back to and say, these are the best practices in something like this. So it's being flexible, willing to change course and say what has worked, what hasn't worked, and taking responsibility for those actions, because with leadership comes responsibility. It also means being compassionate and listening to people. So one of the challenges here is we've got a virus that nobody sees as be fully under control within a short period of time. When do you change the rules? When do you flex to something else? And how do you balance? How do you integrate all these actions together? So it's really taking responsibility for what you're doing and being decisive. Your messaging also has to be very clear. We've seen examples from world leaders where when you read their message, you can see how it makes sense. But since the way it's presented, people find very confusing. So I think it's leading by example. You really want to role model what you're asking people to do for you. So, and I didn't mention, everybody else mentioned where they are. I'm in California. So we have the example of a local leader who's been decisive and stepped up, and a national leader who people have a lot of questions about.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, what you were saying there is really, it's there's a lot about emotional intelligence and the importance of that in leadership. So I'm going to switch to Tom now. So you're an academic, you teach students, you lead students. So how are you going to equip students now and teach them about sort of emotional intelligence to sort of help them equip them for this future? These kind of conditions may reoccur in the future. So how would you go about leading students and teaching them emotional intelligence?
Thank you, Nils, and greetings to everyone from lovely College Station, Texas. As many of you know, I'm also a New Zealander, and my family's 10,000 miles away. And as Eve pointed out, there's certainly differences in how governments handle things. And I stayed here for my daughter. So that was an interesting time. I hope everyone got to reconnect with their family. The question really is about how do we prepare people for what's happening and what will happen. And I sort of give timelines. There's a near term where things are going to be really difficult to predict. I appreciate you pointing out there are no case histories on this. I mean, maybe there are case histories on crises, but nothing of this scale, and certainly nothing of this. It impacts every individual. I had to give this some thought, quite frankly. And, you know, I think the number one thing you do is you be honest and you tell people this is absolutely the toughest time our industry's ever faced. I've got 146 days before I come on board as president, and I feel like each one of those days lasts a year because I know how hard this is going to be. This is going to be a transformation of our industry. It's going to be a transformation of our professional society. It's going to be a transformation of our lives, certainly of our work life. I think you have to be realistic. You have to explain to people it's not going to be the same work environment, nor the same priorities, nor the same workload. Work-life balance is actually improved, they say, under this, but simultaneously, they say people are also working 2 to 3 more hours a day for the last couple of months. And can that be sustained? It doesn't matter. It's going to be expected to be sustained. So, you know, we're going to have to live with that. You need to be authentic. You need to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. The niceties are over. You know, we've the closest analog, I guess, to this is war, and we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions. It will pass. Things will change, but the devastation that this is wreaking will be very real across all scales. In some ways, it won't look any different, but in many industries, many societies, the after effects will last for decades. The loss of capital, the loss of jobs, you know, a near global refocus on oil and gas, which are much easier to recover, much lower cost to recover, is going to be important. A lot of young people don't have any experience with conventionals. They've been engaged mostly in unconventional, certainly in the U.S. for the last 10 or so years. They'll have to adapt. And my last comment on this is you have to be progressive. People who can adapt quickly, they will. There's a lot of young people that I mentor, a lot of young people that I encounter, and they ask me what to do, and I say adapt. Take on new challenges, new roles. People who are unprepared skills-wise, motivationally, etc., they're going to have a difficult time with this, and they're going to have to decide whether or not they can and will adapt. But it will be a very significant, different future. It's going to be, I want to say, Darwinism in its purest form, that people are going to have to adapt in order to survive, and companies will as well. We'll talk more about how companies adapt to this, and I'm sure that others who work directly for companies will give you that. Education is going to be fine. You know, we have demonstrated we can work remotely, that we can work virtually, that we can deliver. A lot of the students have said, and I'm sure I'm going to get flack for this, that they're actually much better at this than the faculty are. But give the faculty a break. They'll evolve. They'll figure out how to use Zoom or when to turn the mute button on and off, and, you know, not to leave the camera on whenever they're may not be fully dressed or something silly like that. But, you know, that part will be okay. And the other issues that people worry about, you know, how do they connect with their faculty and so on, we'll work that out. So I look for a very bright and, you know, capable future in terms of education. When we talk in a little while, I'll tell you that the next year will be very difficult. The next couple of years will be a little bit of uncertainty, but certainly we'll be coming out of it. And the next few years after that will be, unfortunately, probably another boom. So I'll hand it back over to you, Nils.
Well, many thanks. This is Maria. And, you know, Tom, what you said really rings a bell, because you are talking about adaptability. And if there is something that we have seen in this crisis, which is not only the COVID, but also the low price of oil, was the new alliances. We saw something traditional antagonists like the US and the OPEC or Russia, making deals and agreements that we never seen before. And my question now would like Kamel to address it with his international experience and insights. Kamel, what do you think, will this prevail in the new leadership? This new way of adaptation and negotiations that we have witnessed?
So it has been an extraordinary roller coaster in the last 2 months. And after a breakdown in early March, we have seen the negotiation expand from OPEC to OPEC plus and then to OPEC plus plus. The move to OPEC plus happened about 4 or 5 years ago due to the US shales, and the OPEC plus plus happened because of COVID-19. So the first point is that the economies of the oil exporting countries are being extremely impacted by the fall in prices combined with the decrease in demand. So there is a very strong willingness from many fronts, social, to make it work. Most countries, even if they produce oil at less than $20 per barrel, need much more to balance their budget. So Russia, for instance, needs between $40 and $50 to balance their budget. Most other countries need anywhere from $50 up to $200 per barrel to balance their budget. So they have to get those prices up. And increasing their market share will not help them significantly. The US situation is different because it's an open and competitive market. And also you have different types of players between majors and independents. But I mean, we have seen recently the issues of storage being one of the drivers for shut-ins. So for me, the big test for this alliance, expanded alliance, will be the adherence to the production cuts that have been decided, especially for the month of May and June. 23% cut in production has never been done as a collective action. And we have also seen yesterday Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Kuwait going for further cuts. Saudi Arabia by nearly 1 million barrels per day, and UAE and Kuwait by hundreds of thousands of barrels. So that means that there is a strong willingness to go even what was decided in the OPEC plus discussions and around the G20 meeting. The second big test will be the ability to restore production once the cuts are lifted. Again, we have never seen anything like this. And I was recently at a SPE webinar with the minister of a South American country, who was mentioning that, or I think it was the CEO of the oil company, who was saying that after a strike that shut down their production, they were able to restore, after significant effort, 92% of their production. So this kind of cut is like terra incognita for many countries, as they have never done anything like this. So this will be a very significant stress test for those countries and challenge their willingness to go for similar agreements if this situation unfortunately happens and they have to curtail production again.
Well, thank you, Kamel. I think those insights help to understand the overall and overarching efforts needed to go back and improve the current situation. But talking about improving the current situation in the energy sector, many people are now working remotely or in virtual teams. And my next question will be for Dr. Eve Sprunt, because I was wondering, how or what tricks can you give us? How can we motivate a team that is virtual, that is remote working?
I think you definitely have to stay engaged with people. There's people-to-people contact, but fortunately, we're blessed right now with so many fantastic communication mechanisms. And I look at it that working through a group like SPE, so often you have to reach out remotely. When I first became engaged with SPE in the early 80s, long distance phone calls and things like that were very primitive. You had echoes from the satellite connections. But one of the things about working through SPE is that you find often you can't do things face to face. We're a global organization. We're working all around the world, all hours of the day and night. And so you reach out in whatever ways you have. And so I found over the years, I've built very strong relationships with people who are very far from me. And that's not only working when I was working for mobile early in my career, and many of my projects were Indonesia and I was in Dallas, that I've been working remotely and globally for decades. So it's something you can do very well. And I think that leaders have to reach out. They have to touch their people, in effect, check in with them, see how they're doing, see what their issues are. You could do the equivalent of what many old-fashioned managers like to do, which is managing by walking around, by electronically walking around and checking in on your team, finding out what their issues are. So we have the means to do all the same types of reaching out electronically that people would do if congregated in an office. So I think it's a question of just getting over the fact that, you're doing it remotely, and that they're very powerful things. And I can say it's like Maria, Angela, and I are very, very good friends, but we have only spent a few days over many decades in each other's presence. And I have many, many good friends all around the globe who I have met very rarely. And I think that electronically, we make use of the assets, the fabulous electronic assets that we have.
Well, thank you, Eve. Communication, communication, and communication. I get
Yes.
from what you say.
Yes.
So thank you. That's very important. And perhaps there are a set of our members that are very, very well versed in these new techniques, and those are the students. And that will take me to my next question. How do you inject good energy and positive energy? And I would like, again, to ask this to Tom, because of his role in academia. I would like to know, how do you inject good positive energy now, in the new cohorts of students relatable to petroleum engineering?
Honestly, Maria, maybe we're spoiled, those of us who are academics, but we see students as always being highly motivated. I think they recognize that the market is really difficult right now, but even at late night last night, I had a meeting with the student officers of our chapter because they moved the meeting tonight because some of them do have internships, some of them don't. They accept the fact that this is an unusual situation. my own graduate students are, they struggle with jobs, they struggle with the usual caveats about the future of the industry and so forth. But I think everyone understands it's brutal right now. It's just a fact. I'll also comment that we've had our best innovations during downturns, and I'd also comment that while what do they say? Causation is not correlation. We seem to have our best leaders evolve and emerge during downturns. I think the same thing's going to happen here. I mean, well, I know it is that certainly the established people in the industry will acclimate to this. They'll do fine. The young people actually are accustomed to acclimating. I do think it's a hard sell to look at enticing or encouraging young people to come into petroleum engineering, but my speech hasn't changed throughout my career. If you really want to be a petroleum engineer, there's always going to be a role for petroleum engineers. And secondly, hard work does correlate with success. If you're the hardest working person in the room, you're not going to ever have to worry about a job. There's also an entrepreneurial aspect of petroleum engineering, which many of our former students, which we call our alumni, they adapt to and have created service companies, operating companies, investment companies, and so on. There's plenty of opportunities, but the short-term brutality of this, and everyone has said this, is real. We just have to sort of nurture them through this pit. And like I said, I think that as we come out of it, there will be a shortage of talent. It is not going to be pleasant. I don't enjoy when there's a shortage of talent. I don't enjoy when there's a glut in talent. But like I'll end with where I started, which is downturns or challenging times tend to bring out people who evolve or emerge as our best leaders. I'm looking forward to that, and I think that's the way we ought to treat this. As education is offered, as I mentioned before, it'll change dramatically because of this. We'll be able to offer anything, anytime. I think there's a role for SPE for that. I don't want to, step on anyone's toes, but I do think SPE can help to facilitate that, and I will strongly encourage that when it's my turn to speak for that. So I'll hand it back to you.
Well, thank you, because I think that is a vision that we need to share with the membership. I mean, there is a positive outlook out there, not only for the students, but also for us as petroleum engineers and in the industry as a whole. And that brings me to another question that I have here, and is relatable to the SPE and the new normal. Because how can the SPE help any given member to get prepared to navigate these, challenging times, and then re-emerge, okay? After navigating these challenges, a stronger person, perhaps even a stronger leader. And I would like to know what kind of resources is SPE offering about that? I know that, Tom, you're going to speak to us about that, but I would like to address Sami. Sami, would you like to tell us about it?
Sure, Maria, thank you. Let me just add one point for the motivation. Something that we have been trying to do in SPE for a very long time, which is the pride of what we do. Again, during my presidency, I talked a lot about really the pride of what we do. What we do is not pumping oil and gas. What we do is basically putting, enhancing prosperity of mankind on Earth. That's exactly what we do. We put smiles on the face of people, and we enrich their social life and so on. So the pride is really what needs to be injected in our academic programs, in our DNA when it comes to SPE, and that's exactly what we have done in SPE. This remind me with the story that was mentioned. President Kennedy, when he was touring NASA back in 1962 or 63, and he was walking, he saw a janitor, and the janitor he stopped his tour and asked the janitor, "What do you do?" And that janitor was really he really had the line of sight when he said, I'm helping putting a man on the moon. That's basically the skills that we need to inject into our students, to feel the pride of what they do. And the analogy to people working nowadays in this crisis, the analogy of people working for oil and gas is similar to the people working in the health sector, and they're working 24 hours really to keep pumping oil and gas to make sure that the lifestyle, the prosperity, the lifestyle of the 21st century is well maintained. So that's part, I think, needs to be injected, in the academic program as well as in our programs at SPE. Now, when you're talking about what do we do in SPE to help our members during this crisis, we can address this from different aspects. The first aspect is basically we have invested big time on digitization, and that's why we started harvesting this investment. And the event that we have today is a good example of this. So now, as a matter of fact, we have an advantage of reaching more members. If you look at the percentage-wise, how many members come to our major events, this is possibly a very small percentage. But when you look at the technology, what technology offer today, basically we can reach more than the 150,000 members that we have globally. That's really what we're trying to focus on. We will redesign our programs, our services to be more virtual, the advanced technology that we have today. Now, we're also doing something also to those who are unlucky during this crisis, who lost their jobs. We have something called Members in Transition portal as part of our SPE.org. They can really go there and seek some information. We also have a wonderful tool called SPE Connect. This is basically providing a platform for each technical domain, really for them to communicate and network and improve their network. A mean or a source that they might use during a crisis like this when they lose their lives. And one also important thing that also we're doing virtual job fairs as well. We started doing it. We did it last year, and it was very, very successful. And also, we will try to also develop, more portals to help those who are unlucky during this crisis, who lost their life. I would like just, who lost their job. I would like just to conclude by saying, there is a beautiful tool that we launched in 2019, and that is SPE app. This is really a very effective tool for our members to reach the technical information, to reach SPE services, in a tip of a finger. In the past, you need to go to an internet or a library to get access to an SPE paper, or watch a video, or watch a webinar, watch this Leadership Live event. Nowadays, you have this beautiful smartphone and beautiful app that you can use and really enrich your technical skills, your leadership skills, as well as you improve your network that you might use, back to you, Maria.
Thank you, Sami. And at this point, I would like to encourage the people who are connected to our live cast to make questions to our panelists. Our panelists are natural role models for us because they were at the top of the SPE roles as presidents. And you know what? Part of the leadership is also when people become role models. And I would like to ask Eve Sprunt, Eve, what do you have to tell us about the role models during these times, these challenging times?
Well, as you say, role models are...
I know it's difficult. we lost Eve. So, Kamel, would you like to take the question while Eve reconnects? What
Okay,
is the role? Yeah.
Okay, so for the role model, you need to be able to use all the battery of soft skills that your committee, the business management and leadership, is advocating. And I would highlight a handful. The first one is communication. Communication is very important in this time of crisis, and being able to deliver a content to a very anxious workforce is of paramount importance. The second one is in terms of being able to use your strategic thinking skills to look at possibilities. And our industry, the energy industry, has been at the forefront of strategizing. I refer, for instance, to the work that has been done by the Shell team in terms of strategic outlook. And this is something that you need to know how to develop. You need to know what are the scripts that you want to have as possibilities, and what are the implications of these scripts, and then decline them into tactical choices. The third one is negotiation, because you need to then go back from whatever position where you are to a negotiation position. Let's say if you are in the service sector, you are being pressured by your customers to cut costs. If you are in an oil and gas companies, you are also being pressured by your stakeholders to increase, to maintain your dividend. Or so all these have to be taken into account in terms of negotiation with your different stakeholders. And then you have other ones that you need to use. You need, I mentioned earlier, the empathy word, because this crisis has an impact on lives, it has an impact on careers, and it has also an impact on future careers for our students. So the role model needs to be able to use all those skills to pass on consistent messages that resound with the different publics.
So thank you very much, Kamel. I really appreciate your remarks, because those tell us about, some specifics that are needed in these difficult and challenging times. I would like now to perhaps rethink, what do you see, in the future? I mean, we know that SPE is very much based on events and our contacts and network that we do in our big conferences and more. But now I would like to address to Tom, because you are the incoming president, right, Tom? How do you envision SPE shifting to the new normal? Can you tell us a little bit?
I hate to do this, but I think Sami's more qualified because he's handling the finances right now, but I'll do my best. In all seriousness, we are investing, as we speak, time, effort, sweat, blood, money. We're beg borrowing and almost stealing to try new ideas, to produce new products such as this. In fact, if you'd asked me that we would be doing these kinds of things 2 months ago, I'd have probably doubted it. But I think most of our content in the near term will be virtual or virtual assist. We'll have conferences, maybe small ones, which will have an augmented virtual component. Our people are working 12 hours a day, the staff, on finding resources to use. We're working in collaboration with the other professional societies and how they're going to offer their conferences virtually as well. The fear factor has set in on whether we offer conferences, at live and present or on location, whether or not people would be able to travel, whether or not their companies would allow them, whether or not they would be willing to do that on their own. But SPE is addressing each one of these in a sort of a step fashion. If this works, we'll try more of it. If this works, we'll try more of it. We have multiple planning scenarios to deploy an enormous amount of content, but it will take some getting used to. Ironically, this hit us at a time where we had an enormous amount of content ready to go. I personally missed 3 conferences and 3 workshops in the last 2 months. So, that content's all been pushed back to the fall, Northern Hemisphere fall, pardon me. I also want to toss this to Sami just for a second, and I know Eve's back online, so we need to let her have her question as well. Sami, do you want to comment from the standpoint of your role as the finance chair?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I think you articulated it in a very well way. And just to add to what you're saying, our objective, really, our mission at the end of the day is to be more relevant to our members. Really, we want to reach them as much as possible, and that's why the society is investing a lot, even during the downturn. By the way, we're investing in building a strong infrastructure, IT. So we have good, excellent, IT infrastructure, but we need also to strengthen this to enable us to do whatever we want in the virtual world, basically. And as Tom mentioned, during this year, most of our events would be virtual. So we're putting a lot of resources, a lot of efforts in the digitization and the virtualization of our events, including, by the way, conferences. So we're not talking about only webinars, talks, or workshops. We're also talking about the virtual conferences with an exhibition as well. So basically, as I said, the technology is in our side. We're very strategic in nature. It's not only SPE is very strategic, also the industry is strategic. We're putting a lot of effort in implementing our strategic plan. We revisited our strategic plan almost a year ago. Luckily, we started implementing that revision that enabled us basically to harvest part of what we have invested, and that, a good example is the meeting that we have today. So that's basically what we do in SPE. There is also something else that we would like to add also. If you recall, SPE is known to be the power of the technical aspect of upstream. We were providing the technical skills. We added last year some soft skills as well, in terms of safety, in terms of leadership. Question that was asked before: what kind of skills you want to inject into your students and members? We would like to inject advanced leadership, advanced management while crisis, emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, business and finance acumen. These kind of advanced, skills, the soft skills that I think, the new generation would like really to have, in addition, of course, to the technical skills and the IR 4.0 technologies that we talked about. So we'll be focusing on all of these aspects. We started collaborating with pronounced leadership centers like CEDIP in France to develop safety leadership programs and advanced leadership programs that can be offered to our members, as 2 or 3 days pre-course workshop, or maybe even virtual. So these are the things that happening in SPE. As I said, we want to be more relevant and more closer to our members. And guess what? The technology is really helping us to achieve that. Back to you, Maria.
Oh, I think we just lost Maria. So yeah, thank you very much, Sami. So a couple of questions from the audience. So firstly to Tom, you kind of addressed it earlier, but there's a lot of students out there asking, should they continue with their studies? What is their future in petroleum engineering and the oil and gas industry?
I mentioned it earlier that the near term is going to be brutal. It's going to be hard. If you're graduating this year, it's going to be unpleasant, but now is the time to invest in your career. Pick a program that meets your particular interest. I would advise people, and I've been doing this my entire career, to take outside coursework as well, particularly in the fields of chemical and mechanical engineering that perhaps aren't part of your primary curricula. Make sure you have some strengths that are beyond this. Texas A&M, we did a little bit different approach, and we incorporated their material into our curricula, but my point's still the same. I think you need to have a breadth. All programs allow a minor. That would be a good thing to take some time on that. Be realistic. I had a little speech prepared about people say, well, I don't like that job. I don't want to work in the field. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. If somebody said right now they had a job in, Timbuktu, there'd probably be 1,000 applicants for it. And that's probably the way it needs to be in the short term. Is that it's going to be extremely competitive, but it was extremely competitive when I got out of school, Sami got out of school, Kamel got out of school, Eve got out of school. There were tough times, and you had to make a decision about what you wanted to do with your career. I'm not advocating that everybody on this call, take my advice on this, but all four of us have advanced degrees, terminal PhDs, and we did that. I certainly didn't expect to become a professor. Thank God someone intervened and rerouted my course that direction, but I'm pretty pleased with the way things turned out. But, there are all sorts of avenues that you can take, and advancing your education is never a bad investment. So I advise people to do that as well. There's been so much discussion here that I want to give Eve the last word on this, because she was typing it in, about the word resilience. So Eve,
Yes.
I'm gonna turn that over to you and let you give a few minutes about resilience, because I'm telling you, the definition of resilience is what we're living through right now. So Eve, I'm going to give it to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. I think when I look back, and my career goes way back to the 70s, that resilience is always the most important characteristic. I have seen people who I thought were absolute icons who hit what I thought was a speed bump and fall. And in one case, very unfortunately, the person committed suicide. And on the other hand, I have seen people fall, eat dirt, and pull themselves up time after time after time. So the number one success variable is life throws us all kinds of problems. Now everyone is in a crisis at once. Sometimes it's only you. You don't know whether it's going to be a personal, a work crisis, or what it is. But you have to be willing to step back, look at what's good, what's bad in your life, dust yourself off, crawl your way back, reinvent yourself if you have to. I've reinvented myself numerous times over my career. I've faced all kinds of crises, from bad bosses to major health crises, and you'd be amazed at what, with resilience and your network. So SPE throughout my career has been a source of strength and networking. It's a time when, everyone's employment is insecure. SPE is the most powerful worldwide network out there. And it is a tremendous resource of friends and support. And when I think about SPE, I think about friends and all the people I've known for so many years. And so when I go to SPE meetings at this point in my career, it's about those human connections. And human connections build resilience. You have to build your own personal support team, your sounding boards, and recognize that it's not just times like now. Life throws us all kinds of curveballs, and you have to be resilient.
What a wonderful way to wrap up an idea, Eve. Congrats. I think that in this panel we have heard top insights and very powerful messages of positivism, of optimism, and to go through the challenges. And I think that it is with and through SPE resources that we can help each other and we can help the membership. I would like to, at this time, I think that we answered a couple of questions from the audience. Do we still have time for another question? I think we do, right? Okay, so there is one more question, and that is, I would like to quickly go around, and if each one of you can tell me in only 1 minute, how can we help each other in this time? Let's start with Tom.
Oh, you picked the wrong guy to start with. I'd rather end, because I want to explain to everyone that we're in a lifeboat, and I see it as my personal and professional responsibility to get everyone safely to shore. I'm damn sure not the smartest guy on this panel. He's to my left on the screen. And there's a couple of other people that are a lot smarter than me, but we are going to get through this, and we are going to figure out how to be leaner, meaner, and probably a bit cleaner in how we manage ourselves. I would like to take a moment and say, you know, adversity builds character. Then you got 4 or 5 people on this board that got more character than you can imagine, because we've all taken really tough hits in our careers, and we've all made decisions. We've all taken options that created opportunities for other people. I cannot emphasize strongly enough that it's our responsibility as the senior members to ensure that younger members are protected, that younger members get the resources they need, that they get the attention they need. Again, I see it as a lifeboat, and my goal is to get everybody to the shore safely. And we're going to get wet, going to get cold, going to get hungry. But as everyone said, we're going to be resilient, and we're going to do our jobs. You know, we are second probably only to agriculture in how much people take us for granted. We've got a really important universal aspect of what we do. And I want to emphasize there is nothing that compares with what we do for society, except maybe on the scale of agriculture, in terms of the scope of how pervasive we are.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from Kamel.
Thank you, Maria. So I was recently hearing a webinar where I had the HSE directors of 2 very large service companies. And one actually was taking advice from the other on some of the HSE practices. And I found it a beautiful example of these very strong competitors agreeing on collaborating on things that were important. So collaboration is very important to continue across the industry, and especially, and SPE provides this platform for the industry to do it. And I would say that the industry should not lose also sight that there are long-term issues for our industry that we all have to tackle. Things like sustainability, and Dr. Sami has put sustainability in his presidency. So these are very important things that after this bumps and falls and so on, we still should not lose the long-term objective is make sure that our industry that is absolutely necessary is sustainable.
I think that's your cue, Sami.
Yes.
Maria. I mean, for myself, first of all, I second Tom and Kamel, with what they said. I'm very optimistic. In nature, I'm very optimistic. I think the industry will beat this. If I may call it enemy or whatever, we will succeed and beat this crisis. The thing that we are 100% sure, based on again proven historical performance, that after each downturn, after each recession, there is an upturn. There is our industry will prosper again, and the demand for oil, as I said, will increase. Basically, just a matter of when. So I'm very optimistic in this, and I think I mentioned that we shouldn't lose the line of sight. We have a mission. We have a noble mission as an industry. We need really to focus on. We need to focus on long term. A question earlier was asked, regarding can we restart production when the demand comes, and my answer to that is most likely yes. And those who invest again during the downturn will be able to do that, and that's why I always promote, take advantage of such, recession, not only in the business but also in the students, as Tom mentioned, basically. So collaboration at all level is very important. We can help each other. The companies can help each other. The industries, the countries can help each other. But also at the membership level, we also can help each other. Let's not forget that SPE is all about volunteerism. Really, mentoring is one thing that I think we need to boost during this time. To mentor our young generations, to educate them more, to inject those skills that I was talking about. The concept of pride itself is that I think we need to help each other to inject it in our DNA at all levels. And last but not least, really, also through our networking, if there is a possibility that I can help somebody also who lost his job, that's also something that we would love to encourage. And that's why we're promoting SPE, developing platforms and tools to enable our members to help each other. Back to you, Maria.
Wow, thank you so much, Sami. How can you not love these panelists? I mean, this is an awesome panel, and we are still now need to hear last remarks from Eve. Eve, please, you are at the bat. Oops. She has some connection problems. All right. Well, until Eve connects, I would like...
I'm back.
There she is.
Yes.
There she is. Okay. Eve, we want to hear from you your last remarks for this panel.
Yes. And this shows that your connection everywhere, very close to what I was saying. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, what I was saying is you can have bad internet connections everywhere in the world, including near Silicon Valley. I think the thing in terms of helping others here is taking time to listen to other people and what their challenges are, that we can do a lot of mutual mentoring in this time. We can learn from each other and we can share what works and what doesn't work, because SPE is all about sharing. And so this is the ultimate time for us to all take some time to listen to the challenges that other people are facing, because we can learn as we help others in this. So mentoring and supporting others is not just a gift to the other person, it's a gift to yourself.
All right. So at this point, I would like to appreciate, first of all, the participation of our listeners today. I mean, I think that it is for you that we have organized this panel. And secondly, and perhaps even more importantly, we all want to thank you guys, our panelists. You have generously share your insights. I want to appreciate your time because all these require a lot of preparation. And we are honored to have you as our panelists. So thank you, Yves Sprunt, Sami Alnuaim, Kamel Bennaceur, and of course, Tom Blasingame. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. See you in the upcoming webinars of SPE, the Society of Petroleum Engineers. Bye. A very goodbye from Kuwait and all over the world. Bye-bye, wherever you are.